And welcome back to the PCS Spring Split Playoffs. We are in the winner's bracket, and we are here on match point. It is 2-1 for CTBC Flying Oyster, as PSG have been scrambling the last couple of games. We'll see if they can bring it back and force it to a game at number 5. But before we do get into that, one more time, I do want to thank our wonderful sponsors, CTBC Bank and Caliber. Thank you for making the PCS possible. And thank you for sponsoring CFO, because this team is on fire right now, Clement. They've taken advantage of some mistakes. But they are definitely making that bank right on back.
I was waiting when you were going to make that connection, and it finally came through. This is what you get for sponsoring the PCS. You know, we're going to remain completely partial, but I think karma out there does exist for your teams out there. That's all I'm going to say about the subject.
It doesn't hurt if you pick up some of the best XJ team members out there, and then you pair them with somebody like Shun, who has just, I mean, were they just hiding this guy for like 5 weeks? He was on the roster, I think, from the get-go, and they had Atlan, and we kept talking about how that was maybe the weak point, right? Because he was super dependent on a late game, and then they decide to just bring him in week number 5, and all of a sudden, like, he's just clowning on other 80 carries, and finally, he's beaten Unified and Kaiwing in the 2v2.
Oh, but this is when things start to get interesting. This is when you see the true character of a team like PSG. They have never been in a situation like this with their backs against the wall. Everyone had them automatically coronated right into the finals, and they might have to go into the lower bracket. None of our predictions actually had this. I looked at all the casters, and it was all PSG all the way through. So this is super interesting. This is when we actually get to see Bei and Juhan on the biggest stage of their lives, and to see if they can actually pull through under pressure. A whole different level of game from the regular season.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a big one right now. See if they can go all the way through. I do think the rest of the squad may be feeling a little bit of jitters too, which is a surprise, but it is absolutely happening. We'll see how the draft unfolds. We're about to get into it here for this Game 4, but CFO, they have to be playing with a lot of confidence. They seem to not, none of them really seem to be very bannable, but you talked about it in the post-game last time around that maybe Hanabi can be a win point to take up some of that slack. Honestly, if you can just try and trade even in the 2v2, give yourself some scaling. PSG, they've had incredible fights. They've had some solid mid-games over the course of this split. They absolutely have the pedigree to make this work, but they can't afford to give up a lot of kills to some of those hyper carries. So we'll see how things unfold. PSG once again on the blue side. So far, no change in the bans. The Syndra's off the table. We'll see if the Galio follows.
I personally think that PSG have to back off of the mission bans. If they can just secure Lee Sin, I'm willing to give Mission a good early game, mid laner. I feel like, you know, Mission's been pretty comfortable just being triple banned. He's like, okay, I'll play the Victor into Rise every single game, and I'll still beat Bei pretty handedly. So I'm a little bit worried about them continuing to force so much attention onto mid lane, and I would like to see them ease off that. You know, just pick whatever you want. Prioritize the Lee Sin, the early game jungle, and you know, pick your bot lane a little bit later. You know, see what CFO has to pick for them. I feel like with a squad as veteran as Unified and Kaiwing, they could easily go for counter picks and still win out on the bot lane. You don't have to force everything on them.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, in the regular split, they didn't often pick early on. In the earlier stages of the, as they take away the Bully Bear. I was going to say in the earlier stages of the split when, you know, it was a little bit more focused for like the Gwen up topside, et cetera, we didn't see bot as heavily prioritized right at first. And this is the adaptation. They get the takeaway. Will we see Shun on the Xayah himself, or do they want to do something different and hold the cards?
Lee Sin, again, has a very strong early game, but a little bit riskier when it comes to the team fight, a little bit more tempo focused. They're just going to go for the Nautilus instead. Nautilus has been doing them very well. Okay, they're going to stick to this one. And that makes things interesting for Unified. Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like Nautilus has just been working out so well for Koala. There's no reason to really swap off of it. The only thing I could see them considering is that there are a lot of like tier 1 top lane options open. I just feel like CFO are pretty happy to sit on those. Most likely just going to lock in this Nautilus. Sorry, not the Koala.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they're basically interchangeable. He's played so many games with this champion. Now, I think on the flip side of the matchup, okay, I was going to ask if maybe Unified's the one to play the Misfortune, but no, they're actually going to bring out the Renata Glass. This is something Kaiwing has never done.
Yeah, and it does get me a little bit worried here. Renata is pretty situational as a champion. You don't play engage with Renata, you play counter engage. So that does mean that you have to get range advantage on a champion with Bey. And I'm trying to think of what Bey actually has in the bank that really fits that bill. You want to go for control mage. I think Victor would do very well, but I'm not sure Bey even plays that. Looking down his champion, he does have the Victor and the Silas, so maybe considering a takeaway angle on the side of PSG and just going back to a straight up objective focused 5v5 competition.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible, right? If he plays it on his side, if they can try to get counter engaged for themselves and, you know, try to force CFO to come to them to start the fight, maybe that's a better play, but you're right, it's risky. As we get into the second phase of bans, LeBlanc taken off the board as well. Clearly that's not something Mission really wanted to play himself, even paired up with the Lee Sin and Gemini.
Yeah, I feel like LeBlanc is a bit of an empty ban here coming in from CFO. I doubt PSG would play LeBlanc anyway with an Enchanter support. Usually you want something more engaged and skirmish focus to enable the LeBlanc, and unfortunately Renata is not one of those. So a bit interesting on the bans right here. For CFO, they can go a lot of different ways. They should be able to push in the bot lane. They do have a lot of gank pressure into the bot side as well. So, you know, they have that basis covered, and they most likely will have a counter matchup in the top side. So CFO, I think they're sitting pretty with this draft. They don't have to force too much. It's most likely just another control mage. Or Orianna and Victor are both open. Corki is even open. So there's a lot of options there, and you just see what Hanabi throws at you. And so far, PSG, I don't think this composition has warranted a blue side draft just yet, to be honest.
Yeah, well, we'll see if they've got anything left. They actually banned the Victor, so 4 bans thrown at Mission. Well, Mission threw 3 at Bey. I'll have to see. He does have, yet again, the Orianna. Plenty of ball delivery. The Lee Sin, the classic combination as well. Comes in here. They do start to set up for a good fight. Wouldn't be surprised to see it.
This is so crazy. Like, Mission's like, yeah, it's 7 bans in the mid lane. I'm totally fine with this. I'll just pick my Orianna. This is actually career-wise my best champion anyway. So that's the thing about Mission. He's way too hard to ban out. He's not like a player in the past like Westor. It's like, oh, he has 3 champions. We ban them and we're done.
Or even Maple on a given season, right?
Yeah, Maple pretty much has 4 or 5.
I wonder about this Twisted Fate. Okay, are we okay? All right. We got. I mean, there's Engage. We got a Shurima shuffle. This will be Bey's first Azir in the PCS.
Yeah, and this is something I do worry about. You know, Azir's not one of those champions that you can just pick up out of nowhere. It's actually a pretty high mastery champion. So we'll see how he does, but just in line with how this draft composition is shaping up, you know, you have a tank in your jungler, you have counter engage, you're most likely looking for range on your mid lane, and they do go with the Azir. So I just want to, you know, toot my own horn a little bit and say I got the correct read, but this is also pretty worrying. I'm just not confident with out of the blue Azirs. I'm not sure if Bey has actually played this in solo queue, but so far we haven't seen much of it this split. We haven't seen it at all this split. And PSG will round out with a 4-1 comp with the...
Do it, Rest.
I don't think this is a good pick.
Maybe not, but I mean, it's a pretty brutal team fight, even if he's not worried about winning the 1v1. And he does it!
Oh, boy.
He does the Malphite.
PSG are not lacking in magic damage because of the Azir here. So this is fairly interesting. I actually thought they were going to go for something a little bit more, a little bit risky, or try to outrange maybe with the Jace, but they're actually just going to go straight for Malphite. And the last time they ran this, it didn't look that good. You know, I also said that CFO's weakest part is their engage. CFO are not a team that does coordinated engages very well, and Malphite pretty much only does coordinated engage.
Yeah, I feel like it's risky, but at the same time, it does add for a pretty brutal wombo combo if they can pull it off. That can absolutely be game-changing. But I realize, as I'm saying this, Clement, every time we've talked about a risky draft, the team that's done the risky draft has lost. That is the one consistent trend of tonight.
That is true. That is true. I like these teams are getting forced down to the wire, and they have to go through their entire knapsack and just try to find out what they have still left in the tank here. So let's go over the compositions just one more time. We have the super hyper carry scaling potential coming in from PSG. This late game composition will blow CFO out of the water. They have great carries, insane amounts of damage, and this time they're not trying to run a fourth carry in the jungle, so they kind of improved on that point. This comp makes a lot of sense. It's a 4-1 composition with massive scaling potential. For the side of CFO though, this is, I would say, more of somewhat lane dominant composition when it comes to the mid game. You do have a lot of kill threat with the Orianna against the Azir. With the Shockwave, you can catch them right outside of the E, can finish it off with the Lee Sin execute, and the bot lane should win just a little bit as well. But it doesn't have that much strength in the late game. It's very much dependent on mid game for Malphite to actually get good, unstoppable forces down.
It's going to hinge on that for sure. CFO, if they get this win, they can close out on a 3-1 to send PSG down to the lower bracket for the first time, I believe. CFO really making a splash here in this split. This is a team that I think they came in hot. There were some questions asked about them in the middle as they started dropping games. I know I was one of the people that started to rate this team down, but all of a sudden they pull a switcheroo. They bring Shun in week number 5, and this team has been tearing it up ever since. Keep in mind, it's the team that managed to end PSG's win streak, not just today, but back then in that first week of Shun.
Yeah, that was a lot of games under PSG's belt at that point. I believe it was a 13-game win streak or something of the sort from PSG. Absolutely ridiculous. They break that in half and go on a run of their own. Now, I will say, in terms of the draft, I actually do favor PSG's a little bit here. I do think CFOs have much narrow win conditions, and this is not a draft that they're particularly familiar with. So we have to see how they set up on Drakes. We have to see their coordination. And most importantly, on the other side, I think for PSG is how well, is this Azir from Bay? Azir, high mastery champion, not a champion you can just pull out of nowhere and expect to do very well on it. He had, career-wise, did have a lot of games back in the Korean Challenger scene, but as you said again, hasn't played it. First time this split.
Yeah, we'll see if he still has the fast fingers for it. I am curious. Definitely, as a high school champion, you get a lot of crazy outplays. You can definitely make the big ones. But what I am worried about is if CFO, for PSG that is, if CFO do manage to line this up, if they do manage to correct on the mistakes the last time they played this Malphite Wombo combo, I mean, man, it is just brutal CC for days. That into a Shockwave. They may not have a hyper carry for Shun this time around, but we'll see what he can do in the laning phase. Actually getting horse back under tower for just a second, and Gemini a little bit slower on the draw here as Juhan is going to find him on his own blue buff. He's going to get chased out.
And they also have the bot lane that is pushing up as well, so very nicely done by Juhan. Both lanes pushing up for the side of PSG. Gemini is probably going to chance for a steal right here, but doesn't really have a chance to go in and contest this. All right. Nearly catches out Bay.
Yeah, that would have made a bit of a difference, but nope, going to lose out on his blue buff. Tries for round 2 here, and I don't think Bay realizes this is happening. He's going to probably have to burn his flash here, and they're just setting it up, lining it up. He burns it. No, Gemini mispredicts on the Q, but they do get that summoner.
I like the second attempt right there. Very nicely done, and this does put Bay in a rather awkward position. We have seen, especially rookies, Orianna. I'm not really sure how relevant that is because rookie Orianna is kind of a thing on its own. But we have seen this Orianna as just Shockwave Azir's to death quite often. Like, Azir cannot pull off the E animation quick enough before he just gets just pulled right in for the Shockwave. So that's when you usually see the Orianna matchup start to come out ahead, and a lot of those Lee Sin ganks going through it. And now with the flash down, it's even more likely.
Yeah, that's kind of been the game plan for CFO, right? It is trying to keep Bay on the back foot, just shut down the mid jungle if possible. If you can't shut down the jungle, the mid certainly works out, as Bay has been much less of a carry than the shoes that he was filling with Maple. So certainly an angle of attack for CFO here, but he's right back into it, a little bit lower on the CS, but can try to use those Sand Soldiers to try and even that out. Mission, though, can keep him at bay, borrow a punch.
There's so many Bay puns being thrown around in the PCS. Yeah. And, this is pretty standard fare for Azir. Usually does get the push earlier on. Jim might come in for the repeat gank, but this is let's see if he works.
No summoners. Okay, he shifts. Oh man, Gemini's 0 for 3 on those. Meanwhile, we got to check in on bottom again. Blade Caller. Oh, Koala's low here. Unified, they can push him back, and that is the turn. I didn't see how that one started. It was 2 summoners burned. Unified's heal and Kaiwing's ignite. Now here is the turn. Gemini going to walk onto the ward, though. This is spotted.
I feel like Gemini is spending a little bit too much time trying to find these ganks here. He is down. If you look across the jungle, he's going to be down by 2 camps at this rate. And I do want to say great find from Kaiwing. You know, that's one of the strong points about this champion. Renata, you can find the handshake. It does damage to both of the targets right there. And early game, it's actually kind of hard for Xayah to avoid those. So we are seeing at least the first back work out quite well for the side of PSG. And I do expect that to shift a little bit once Shun does go back for the serrated Dirk, as usually is the case.
Gemini's looking to double down here, actually walking through for a lane gank, but he's going to be met by Juhan. This
Spotted.
could be trouble. They're going to open up, and they find Kaiwing flashing away. Shun follows, looking for that kill. They will not get it because he gets a bailout on himself, but finally falls down first blood as a trade comes through. It's a 1 for 2. Shun, Koala burning all summoners, but they do come out ahead.
Yeah, that was a massive win. Shun actually walks away, and Juhan isn't able to find any damage, while Gemini is able to find the backline. Now Juhan has to walk through.
Oh, he's forced to flash away. They're not done yet. Gemini wants a little bit of revenge for that blue steal earlier. Shield is on. He still can't quite connect with the Sonic Wave. He runs straight into it, and Juhan gets the outplay. He's even going to walk it out. What is happening?
Oh, that was so greedy from the side of Gemini. I can't believe he tried to do that. And I think they were just smelling the blood, smelling the 3-1 finish, but there's no way that one was supposed to work out.
Oh, they pushed their luck. Pushed their luck way too hard, Clement. So dust settles. It's 2 for 2.
Yep.
Down bot. It's a 100 gold advantage. Let's take a look. Let's rewind all the way back to the start because it was on Koala getting a hook. Kaiwing flashes. But Shun, once again, has the killer instinct. Eventually, it runs out of steam.
Yeah, and this is absolutely huge here because they don't manage to get the kill onto Koala before the bailout actually times out. So there was no revive at 28% HP. That goes over to the extra kill on the side of CFO, and then Shun is able to kite it out. So we do have a pretty strong posture here coming in for Shun. Despite the CS deficit, he should be in the gold lead at this point, and this is where this lane starts to become quite strong. So I think CFO, they are getting into that point where there's a lot of different points they can attack. The bot lane should be winning for them. The mid lane still doesn't have flash, so Gemini could attack that quite easily as well. And for PSG, I think they're going to have to start and think about this top side. You do have that Stormbringer for Juhan, and that means Hanabi can straight up chase Rest down for miles, basically.
Yeah, and Juhan's continuing to make Gemini's life a little bit hard right now. Sometimes Gemini kind of at fault for that one, but he loses out on his red buff, and they do have the information that he is up towards topside. Rest is going to try to play back here. Of course, he is losing out on the CS in this one, but he's not necessarily playing for lane dominance. As he is on this Malphite, they want to get that big R in for the engage. And this is going to open up the opportunity for first Rift Herald for PSG.
Let's see if CFO smell this one out. They do know it's happening, but just ticked over to level 6, and it does look like CFO have to let this one go. I want to see PSG actually just straight drop this into the top side. Not straight, but give Hanabi more of a lead in this matchup. This is, you know, it's a neutralizing matchup for sure, but I feel like Hanabi throughout these games hasn't really been given enough resources to win out, and having that side lane split push is going to force CFO to send members to deal with the Tryndamere, which takes away pieces from their wombo.
Yeah, Bay takes a little bit extra time trying to get that blue buff, manages it at the end of the day. And this is a bit of a late dragon start for Gemini, actually kind of second-guessing if he really wants this. I think they thought Unified and Kaiwing might be coming up to try and contest, but nothing doing there. So we'll definitely keep our eyes on where Juhan ends up dropping that Rift Herald. As you said, probably looking at the mid lane right now. CFO are going to try to play a little defensively to set up, and they will be able to pick that first dragon. We won't get an Ocean Rift this game, Clement, because the Ocean is the first dragon.
Ah, nice. I do like my more aggressive ones. We are down to our Hextechs and to our Mountains. I feel like Hextech would be the best for PSG in this case, while Mountain slightly better for CFO. I'll find out which one it actually is here. Just a small correction. I do want PSG to drop their Herald onto the top side. I feel like Hanabi.
Sorry, not mid.
Yeah, I feel like Azir is just kind of there. And we do see Mission start to claw back the matchup. This is usually what happens post 6, especially with that flash advantage as well. But Juhan looks like he has other plans in mind. We are having a bit of a slow game, which I do think favors PSG overall. You know, this Drake timer, if you take everything into account, it's still like at the fastest a 24-minute Dragon Soul. So PSG have found good ways to kind of delay the tempo of this game and not force themselves into a 5v5 against CFO's very strong mid game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you called that's kind of the edge there, and they can wait it out for late if they want and take a nice slow ride for the time being if they don't make those mistakes. I mean, that's been the death knell for this squad. It's a very small gold lead, a very small advantage for CFO, not a whole lot to speak of, and despite some chaos down bottom side, you know, they got a little bit back for themselves. Juhan with the outplay, Gemini on the unforced error. We'll take a look at the gold at the moment. Juhan does actually have the most in the game, just barely, up against the side of Mission. Okay, Rest looking for the 1v1, actually, and not be able to heal it right back up. So not a lot of kill pressure there unless he really wants to risk going in on the unstoppable force and hoping he can hit his buttons faster than Hanabi. But here comes Gemini. A dive is inbound.
They're going to force the ult from him, but it's not the easiest dive to execute.
It's not, but they've got time to wait it out, and there's the kick into the queue. Gemini does make it look easy that time around. Herald's actually popped in the bot, though, as here comes the push from PSG Talon.
And Shin has to be very careful here. Juhan can disable the tower, so I feel like their only choice is to completely back off if Juhan does go forward for this one. But whoa, they actually wave clear very well, saving the feathers for that waves and setting it up for the push. So very well done by Shun to kind of diffuse that situation.
Yeah, you know, you don't usually see the level of poise from a rookie that Shun has displayed. I mean, yes, he got pretty hard outplayed in game number 1, but man, he has been looking better and better as things have gone, and you can really see why the team put so much stock into having him start in week 5 and just continued on here. Koala looking for a hook, doesn't quite find it onto Unified. This game, bot lane a little bit more even, but CFO kind of coming out ahead there. They managed to get a few plates for themselves as a nice outplay up top with the help of Gemini. Rest is really off to a decent start. Frozen Heart complete.
And Frozen Heart, this is the item I wanted to see. When I was looking at the ban picks, I was saying, wait a minute, all of these guys are attack speed based. Unified, especially if he goes into the onslaught, is incredibly reliant on attack speed. Bay as well with the Azir. Then you have the Tryndamere. So everyone is going to be feeling an effect here. I like how he skipped you know, kind of the usual tank item start just to go for this one. It's the best value you can get in a single item here.
Yeah. Rest definitely having a little bit more fun with this one right now and finding the adaptation that he needed. After game number 1 certainly didn't go his way. He's been unleashed in the last few. As you mentioned, it is a little bit of a slower game, but CFO building up a little bit of advantage right now. They have a timer as they do not want to go into the late game. We'll see what they can get done with it here. Gemini and Koala, danger of being caught out. Sky Splitter, though, they do dodge it out. Off the back, Mission picks up his Luden's Echo, though, so he's going to be a bit of a threat in of himself. Bay's going to have to respect that. Dragon comes up in a minute.
Yes, they are doing a very good job in controlling this side of the map here. They have plenty of pinks to make sure there are no flanking wards. And I think CFO are just going to find it pretty difficult to force themselves into position for this Drake. It's 40 seconds into the Infernal. This means Juhan and his Scuttle will cover that timer. And it looks like instead...
They tried to make the play. Oh dear, Mission. A quick flash. And he does trade it for the ultimate, so it's actually quite a good cooldown timer. And they're not done just yet. And the Shockwave will pull in Bay, but in a 2v1, it doesn't matter. Shutdown lands into the pocket of Juhan. Gemini is going to get caught on the rotation as well. He does get the kickback, lands the Sonic Wave. Rest is coming at his back, but they don't want to fight that one out. Meanwhile, down to the bottom, Shun trading it out with Unified in a 1v1. Unified's finding more damage on this Aphelios.
Yeah, and does have the execute as well, so Shun has to be very careful. Unified could close the gap. He has 2 gap closers still left there. And yeah, just good vision advantage into a surprise coming in from PSG here. I feel like Mission overplayed his hand. I don't think PSG really cared about the threat into the top side whatsoever. And that's one less chance that CFO have to snowball. Let's see if Rest tries to TP and join.
Oh,
Here
they're
he
going
goes.
to test this. Oh, here comes Koala looking for the knockup. They're trying to interrupt as much as they can, and they do steal away the dragon, and the hostile takeover doesn't do a thing right now as they yoink down Juhan, getting dinner and dessert.
Oh, that was so well done by CFO at the start of this, especially for Shun outplaying the smite there. He gets the Infernal Drake. That is so important because it forces PSG to contest before they really want to. Let's see what happens to Gemini, though.
Okay, he's going to be able to walk away. The handshake was almost point blank on the face, but he's able to get away from it all the same. I cannot believe CFO just got away with murder there.
Yeah, like Shun was able to out-damage the Volley Bearer, I believe, just with the Blade Callers there. And sneaking away that objective, getting the extra kills there. PSG had a very early start on this one, but I think Rest did the correct thing here because the tower plates are already down. You don't really care about Hanabi getting much done in the top lane. He did a preemptive back, and sure, Hanabi caught up on the wave, but no, that doesn't really matter all that much. So, well played on that side. Honestly, there was no jungler here. A jungler was very late, so a little bit unfortunate on the side of Juhan. Good steal coming in from Shun, and unfortunate for Kaiwing because they were caught in a position where they had to flash out right there, and Aphelios also wasn't in the fight, actually got pushed in by Shun there, so they essentially played what should have been a 4v4 into more of a 3v4 and let CFO walk away with it.
Yeah. And we also got an answer to your question from earlier, Clement. We will, in fact, have a Hextech Rift on the map, so all sorts of cross-map shenanigans. A lot more possible, a lot faster here at PSG. They are going to get another Herald at the very least for themselves, but they weren't able to get a full charge off, or rather a full tower takeoff with the last one as they popped it on bot. Oh, Hanabi forced to flash away, and they just chase him down. But he is going to be able to walk it out. Now PSG, realizing with so many members down bot, they can just drop the Herald up top side. But they are going to be in a bit of a tower race as Shun getting the push down on the bottom with some help from Gemini. Should be interrupted by Bay, though.
Yeah, I think PSG will be able to equalize on the turrets, but the question is trading mid lane worth it? I feel like that is a little bit more dicey when it comes into the calculations here. Azir really needs that mid lane to stay up, and it does seem like CFO, because they don't have vision on the top side, are willing to just relinquish that push for a better recall. So, all in all, not too terrible for either side right there in this trade. If I'm looking at the next fight, though, I still feel like PSG need to power up. Aphelios, much better at 3 items compared to the 2-item spike from Xayah, and the same goes for the Tryndamere as well. So PSG most likely going to take things very, very slow, and I think the big turn is going to come on the 4th Drake. The 3rd Drake, still way too iffy.
Well, and it's as you said, like the composition-wise, right? Like this is a hyper-scaling composition for PSG. They're going to want to have that late game. They have the 4-1 opportunity. Also, Hanabi, he can still chase people down. He's on the Stride Breaker build, but we do have a pause coming in here. So let's just kind of like look at the game state. It is still a gold advantage for CFO, but it's only 2,000. It's not unmanageable. We've seen a couple of mistakes so far from CFO, meaning that there's little places that PSG talent can take advantage of, find the place, but they are trying to play a little more conservatively, a little slower, because they have that late game.
Now, what we've seen in the past game is that Hanabi Tryndamere actually does a great job in team fights. He's able to get so much ground by himself, and that makes the job of the Malphite very awkward. Because as a Malphite, your first job is to just rush into the enemy team, put a ball onto you, and then just dunk them with the Shockwave combo. But when there's a Tryndamere there, it makes the calculation a lot more muddy, because you have to think about your own backline. You have to think about, is Xayah going to be able to survive this one, and all the things like that. So I feel like there's still a very good chance for PSG to win and contest on the 3rd one, but what most likely they have to do is find that flank coming in from Hanabi. And I think this is what they're setting up to do with that swap from the bot side to the top side. They want to put Hanabi back into control of the long lane that they have in the bottom, and then try to flank across the river that way coming into the 3rd Drake. We're only 2 minutes away, and I think this one is, for PSG, the way they should approach this is, if we don't get it, it's fine, but if we do, we'll try for it.
Yeah, and they have an opportunity, right? I mean, again, with the Hex Gates, you can, try to position for for a little bit of a better flank on the other side. Even on blue, you can do this. PSG are actually trying to bait a fight. Juhan is waiting over the Raptors right now, but Mission's able to just poke out Kaiwing. This is another risk of playing the Renata, right? Is like, you are squishy. You do not have tank stats.
Yeah,
You gotta walk it out.
PSG do not do a good job with their composition at actually pushing terrain. So what CFO are doing here is really smart. They're going directly up the ramp into PSG's jungle and saying, you know what? You have an enchanter support. Try to push vision with enchanters. Try to push vision with a Bay. And they know that they can just poke out with Mission. Once again, Orianna has been, I think, the most played champion of Mission's career, and he's very good on control mages like this.
Yeah, and another reason why you just can't ban him out. Now there is a wraparound here from Hanabi. Koala puts down a ward in that river brush, so they clearly think something is up here. But now it's just going to be the turn, the reset for the dragon. Still about 40 seconds before that one spawns, so we will just see the reset.
Yeah, we do have Rest coming in with the Sunfire, so
oh no, the melty combo, Clement.
This is pretty interesting.
I love it. I mean, I usually see this kind of thing more in TFT, I'll be honest.
Yeah, you usually assume that they're going to go for the Iceborne, Frostborn Gauntlet just to, you know, get a slow field down. The damage is kind of a secondary thought, but this is how Rest wants to play it.
He is a very entertaining top laner. Like, I mean, he's been a little quieter on the emotes this game, but he's kind of known as our BM king for any of you uninitiated viewers. He does like to spam. Now, PSG. Okay. Ooh, I don't know if Koala wanted that one to connect. But all 5 members of CFO are here, as are PSG. Dragon is up.
Alright, we do have to look for the flanking angle now for Hanabi, and he's going around the long route. And CFO have also pushed the way.
Taking it.
Yeah. I think this is okay for PSG. Like, they knew this was a bit of an outside chance on the 3rd Drake. The 4th one is when you really want to, but you need to force feed some of these carries right now. Azir 2 items is not comparable to Orianna. Neither is the
Aphelios?
I wanted to call him Aphelios. There we go. There's too many champions that start with A.
Azir, oh my god, yeah, you're right. It's starting to get there. It is interesting to look back over the years and think of how many have been added, well, in the process of everything. Whoa, look at this though, PSG. The sneaky Baron start. Ooh, it's not that slow either. Gemini's going to be spotting it, but do they commit? They're staying on it. They're not bailing away. Rest has teleport. This is a risky play. Here comes Koala around the backside, looking for the setup here. He's just trying to buy some time. I don't know about this one. Trying to pull the Great Escape, but meanwhile, it's all a ruse. It was a ruse, Clement. They're gonna sacrifice him for the Baron for CFO. What an absolute ridiculous bamboozle.
They were just using
and they get out. I mean, Koala dies, but it's totally worth it.
That was such a funny play from Koala. You see him coming in by himself, and you're like, this is a dead Koala. And then he turns around on their head. He gets so far away, and PSG actually chase. Look at Bay. He's completely flabbergasted. He's like, what? Wait a minute. Did we just lose Baron for that?
I cannot believe what we just saw. That is the biggest brain play I have ever seen.
I love what Rest did as well. Rest was there just to make sure PSG couldn't get over the ramp. It was like, I'm a rock, and I'm just going to clog this ramp. I don't even care if I die.
Koala, like, the crazy thing about it, too, is, like, it would be so, like, understandable to be like, oh, he just, like, yeah, like, he made a mistake. He thought he was going into the team, didn't go in with him, because it's happened this series.
Yeah, it's happened actually
I can't get over
times. That. Oh, boy. Is PSG going to be sent to the lower bracket by a Marsupial? That was such a clean play.
Hey man, I used to cast the Oceanic region. Never underestimate the power of koalas.
That's a drop down level play. But Jun's coming in though.
Okay, I don't know about this one. Juhan, he's forced to. Oh no, the Stormbringer is storm brought, and there's nowhere to go here. The kickback, Gemini getting unified into no man's land as they take him and Kaiwing off the map. Everything's starting to fall to pieces for PSG. Clement, we might be seeing it. Did the Flying Oyster knock PSG off their perch?
Oh man, PSG has been so dominant this entire time throughout the league. It looked like they couldn't be contested. They could have had the better draft the entire time. And I just can't believe this is happening. You know, CFO has looked really kind of discombobulated, but this game, they're attacking PSG from so many different angles. They're outsmarting them on different levels. And let's just watch this again. Juhan, he tries to find the angle, but it's a very difficult angle to force through, especially against this. Zaya here, they're forced to walk through Mission. Mission ain't gonna let them do that. And what a clean play by Gemini.
That was beautiful between Mission and Gemini. Absolutely incredible coordination there. And now Gemini is really feeling himself. Gets the insect, and Juhan's heading for the hills, forced to flash away, calling desperately for backup, but there is only Unified coming, and I don't think he wants to. He does try to turn a kill around. Moonlight Vigil going forward, but Gemini again, and Mission will not die!
The base is wide open. They bait PSG to overcommit right here. That's the AD carry gone. There's no one to wave clear.
This has got to be it, you have to think. If they can keep this push going, 25 seconds is a long time. They're going to at least get this inhibitor down, and 5 members strong. Yeah, Koala tanks up a tower shot, doesn't really matter. And this is going to be PSG's final stand. Are we going to be seeing a 4-game series? No, because CFO decide they would much rather get the reset. They are playing with restraint, Clement. They are not pushing their edge.
They got the flashes, and that's good enough. They don't need a chance it right here. Koala, please come
Koala doesn't get caught. This is a turn.
This is a bait. Is it?
Yeah, I think it was. Hanabi, he's just going to get knocked up for days. Eventually, that Undying Rage is going to run out. And he's doing a lot of work, but it's not enough. Meanwhile, base caught again, too. Get your yakety sax playing as he tries for the 2-man shuffle, but they don't have enough damage to follow through. That hostile takeover is only going to do enough. They do manage to shut down onto Shun. Can PSG shut things down here? Their base is under siege, though.
There is some
CFO are going to try to walk it out.
Yeah, Russ can still come back into the fight, but that was such a clutch play from Kaiwing. He actually tags the hostile takeover onto Mission, and with the clockwork windup, Mission turns around and kills his own AD carry. So, what a massive play, but he might not even survive this.
Yeah, Rest has already gone in on the flank, and now Kaiwing, he bails himself out, but it's only a couple more seconds remaining. Meanwhile, Juhan and Kaiwing and Unified are trying to go in. The shockwave dodge, but it doesn't matter. Sundisk up, I don't think that's going to deter CFO for very long. Hanabi is pinging for help right now as they've lost the last Nexus turret. Well, Dragon Soul be damned, Clement. I think they're going for it.
Yeah, Zaya has just respawned right here in 24 seconds. And here comes Rest. He's about to finish this game off.
He's certainly trying right now. Juhan and Hanabi looking to hold the line, but I don't think it matters. The Big Bear is going to get taken down to 0. And off to the knock-up Rest. He really only needed to bowl one strike. And that is going to be the series. CTBC Flying Oyster knock PSG Talon down to the lower bracket.
Nobody saw this one coming. PSG were heads above shoulder, the stronger team throughout the regular split. They had the bot lane that was so consistent here, and the top lane that could match up against Rest, but they still dropped the series. And this game was a really weird way how things played out, honestly. I just feel like the early skirmishing power and just how consistent Mission was throughout this entire 4-game stretch was what put PSG down. We were asking the question, who is the best mid-jungle duo in the PCS? And the answer is, after Maple, it's no longer with PSG, it's with CFO.
Yeah. Mission and Gemini, and also just after that first game loss, recalibrating, trading for some really interesting champion choices, for some really solid and outside the box. I mean, with all the bans being thrown the way of Mission, he's perfectly fine to go onto a couple of different champions like the Orianna and the Victor. He plays them all so consistently. Gemini, with a few mistakes, kind of finds his way back into the series and just does work. That Lee Sin looked beautiful in this game number 4. And Shun, how about this rookie AD carry just rocking Unified and Kaiwing more often than not? We don't get to see that in the domestic league here. I think it's a new day in the PCS, Clement. I mean, this is CTBC Flying Oyster going straight to the finals.
And if you look at this game, it was such an abrupt turn. It was actually doing pretty okay. Like, everything was according to script. You know, you get to scale until 2.5 items. Maybe you don't get 3, but you get 2.5. And go into the 4th Dragon Soul fight where, you know, your Azir's online, your Aphelios online, and maybe we see something happen. But it was so odd where we just saw you were like, PSG just go for Desperation Baron. And Koala, who is, you know, koalas are supposed to be the dumbest animals in the animal kingdom. They outsmart PSG.
Shots fired, man.
Completely just like dismantle them.
You know, it makes me think of something from the interview last week, Clement, when Ririchu asked Kaiwing, like, you know, what he thought about this side of CFO. He's like, yeah, you know what? This is PCS T1. And I don't know, man, that was some big brain plays worthy of Carrier. I think Koala may have his ups and downs, but man, that was brilliant. And the whole team went along with it. What an incredible play. What an incredible series from this squad, who are really making a name for themselves here in the PCS and earning a finals berth the first time in these jerseys.
Yeah, I just feel like PSG throughout this series, especially in Game 3, Game 4, I feel like they lost a lot of their patience in some of these early game skirmishes. They could have waited on a little bit longer. Like, you know, you don't have to sweat it. Of course, the third Drake, there was one mess up where they allowed the Malphite to walk in and get that objective with Shun kind of uncontested. But other from that, I felt like the game was still very much playable. It just, like, I was in shock at how fast that game was going downhill right after their Baron. And unfortunately, from the players' faces, I have to attribute some of it to tilt factor. I think especially right. The unified play afterwards was very clear sign of it's just like, I'm sick of this and I don't know what's happening. So unfortunately, I do think there might be some communication problems happening on PSG. It's, you know, it's always somewhat expected in your first split trying to integrate 2 Korean players onto the roster. So maybe that's some of it, but I think unfortunately PSG didn't really play to the usual standard that we expected out of them.
Yeah, I think they definitely had a little something lacking in most of those games today. Whatever it was enough to really let CFO overcome them. But at the same time, I do want to give a lot of credit to the CTBC side because they did exactly what they needed to. Some risky compositions, but they just played to win conditions really well. They found the edges in these very chaotic fights. A lot of them they didn't choose, but they found the positional errors and they took advantage of them. And it just showcases the raw talent that every member of this Flying Oyster squad has.
Just look at this gold graph. PSG were within 2,000 gold at 22 minutes with a Nazir and a Aphelios and a Tryndamere. I felt like that was an okay position to play through. Like, you really didn't have to force any of this. And look at what happens to the gold graph right after that. It's Baron play, the catch, and to just game end. So, yeah, I just feel like, you know, if I'm looking at this series as a whole, I don't feel like if PSG replay this, they're going to make the same mistakes in Game 3 and Game 4, and that just makes the finals, if it's still these two squads, that much more spicy.
Yeah, we have a lot to answer before we get there, but Gemini earns the MVP for our final game tonight. 100% kill participation. Chef's kiss on that Lee Sin. And he was set behind early against Juhan. He actually got 3 buffed and couldn't really do a whole lot to try and get back in it, but he doubled down on trying to get the lane plays, managing to find them. He even made an oopsie down bot, but it didn't matter because when it got into those mid-game fights, he was just pulling insect kicks left, right, and center.
It was so incredible to watch him just land onto Unified every single team fight. We saw the collapse after the Baron play, really shut down any chance that the Dragon Soul was going to be taken afterwards. And I feel like Lee Sin is sort of the unsung hero of this series. I kept on asking, I kept on calling for a PSG to prioritize a Lee Sin, not only because Juhan plays it a lot, but because Gemini plays it so well. And we are still seeing Lee Sin is still the king of early game junglers. If you want to snowball early game, you pick the Lee Sin. You can easily flex into the LeBlanc afterwards. And even if you don't, he can still keep the opponent jungler down and prevent a snowball on the other side. So I think, you know, some of these olden champions are still golden. You have to factor in Lee Sin into a lot of these drafts.
I think you absolutely do, and both these teams did, but it was CFO that had that last one, and Gemini, man, he has got to be feeling pretty well with not only his performance, but what the team was able to accomplish. 3 games to run it back after that game number 1 loss, and they are moving on to the finals. They may be in for a rematch with PSG Talon, but they've already proven that they can go toe-to-toe. And man, it'll be so exciting to see. We're going to be getting an interview with CFO right after this. Don't go anywhere.